Hey guys, what's up? So, today I wanted to share some of my experiences and also give a couple of pointers about loneliness whilst traveling or living abroad. So, try and bear with me. I've been pretty sick recently. I've been down with a cold, and I still am kind of down with a cold at the moment. I've got a bit of a sniffy nose, so please try to bear with me. But I feel like loneliness while traveling is a very important topic to cover, and I wanted to share some of my experiences of things that have happened to me while I've been living abroad, and also give a couple of pointers, in my opinion, about dealing with loneliness while you're overseas. So, a lot of people, especially those who've never really spent any time traveling or really kind of spent a long time away from home, tend to have kind of an over romanticized view of traveling and living abroad as always being kind of fun and always being happy, and it's not necessarily always that way. So it is very, very normal to get lonely while you travel, and it affects a lot of people, especially those people who go to a country where they don't speak the language of it, or the culture is very different, or they look different to all the other people there. So, a couple of my experiences. So, my first experience of loneliness while traveling happened to me 4.5 years ago. So, I was working in the United States at that point. I'd been doing a summer camp for 3 months in Pennsylvania. And after I finished there, I went back to New York, and we had to take a bus, the regular bus, because there was not enough space on the camp organized buses for us. And I was with a couple of people who I didn't really know very well, and I felt very overwhelmingly lonely when I arrived back in New York. The ironic thing is that New York is one of the biggest and most densely populated cities in the world, and yet I'd never felt lonelier before at that time than being in New York. Because all my friends that I'd made at that camp, the girlfriend I had at that time as well, were all far away from me, and I didn't know if I would see them again, or when I would see them again, or what was happening. And I became very overwhelmed emotionally. Uh, Suddenly, the solitude of being by myself after all this time around other people, as it was a solid 2 or 3 months that I spent with other people every day and night. And suddenly I was on my own again, and I didn't really know how to feel or really what to do. But anyway, the next encounter I had with loneliness, and possibly worse than this encounter, was when I was living in Thailand, and it was in late on 2014. So when I first went out to Thailand, it was in mid 2013, and while I moved there, I moved with an agency. With my agency was maybe 15 to 20 other people from all across the world who also went to Thailand with me. Now, I was placed in a school in Rayong province with two other guys. So it was me and two other guys from the United States. And I very quickly became good friends with these two dudes. And I still talk to these dudes from time to time. And we pretty much did everything together. And then 6 months later, another dude came who I also became friends with. And I made friends with another guy who was also at my school, an English dude. And this English dude and me spent a lot of time together, especially after my first friends had all kind of been and gone on their year-long contracts. Because most people would only come to Thailand to teach for a year, and then they'd go on somewhere else or go back home or whatever other thing that they've got going on. Whereas I was staying longer term than that. So a concern to me was making friends with people who were going to last and people who were going to stay, which is quite a difficult thing to do, especially when you're teaching abroad, because I kind of feel like when you're teaching abroad, a lot of people just come for 6 months or come for a year and then they move on. And there's very few or not that many people who tend to kind of stick around longer term or make a bit of a future out of it. So anyway, I became friends with a dude from England after my American friends had all kind of been and gone. Me and this guy, we would do quite a lot of things together. Like we'd go to the pub or we go to the gym together. I go to his house sometimes, and we just hang out. But anyway, another dude joined that school around May, June time, and very quickly, this my friend and this other dude quickly became very good friends and kind of stopped talking to me or stopped seeing me as much. Like I felt like they were kind of shunning me or pushing me away or something. Especially because I moved school, so I wasn't in the same school as them anymore, even though we're still in the same city. And what happened next was I'd message them from time to time and I'd say, what you up to? Do you want to do something? Do you want to go get a beer? And they would always say, oh, we're busy, we've got extra classes going on or something. They'd always make something up. But then I'd see on like Facebook or whatever that they'd clearly not been busy and that they were doing things together without me. So I felt a bit pissed off that they just like kind of sacked me off for no reason whatsoever. And I tried not to think too much. But anyway, I started to feel increasingly isolated during that mid part of 2014. I started to feel very isolated, especially because I was living in Thailand. I was in a place where there was very few foreign expats there. Or at least there's very few foreign expats that I knew or I felt like I could kind of be friends with. So I spent almost 4 months or 3 months, 3 and a bit months, where I never talked to another Westerner. And every day I'd see my girlfriend at the time, who was Thai, and she kind of didn't really understand me that much in the way that, like, how it felt to be a Westerner in a faraway exotic culture by yourself. So I felt very, very lonely. Even though I had this girlfriend, I still felt very lonely. I didn't have any dude friends. I didn't have any kind of Western friends that I could just go and have a beer with or talk to from time to time. So I quickly became kind of very depressed and I almost wanted to go home. And I came very close to packing it in. I think the only reason I didn't pack it in at that time was because I was still with that girlfriend. But anyway, a few months later, I ended up meeting this guy from the Philippines, of all places, who liked going skateboarding. And so me and him would go to the skate park together, and we met a couple of other dudes. And then I started meeting some other Westerners who were in town, and it did start getting better. But for a good 3 or 4 months, I felt very, very lonely, and I almost felt quite depressed as well while I was out there. So my point is that loneliness and depression are very real things when you're traveling overseas, and it is very normal. So I don't want people thinking like that when you go traveling the world that it's automatically always going to be fun and it's always going to be an adventure, because there are some very, very tough times to life on the road as well. Some very tough times. And I'm very lucky for the most part that now here in Italy I've not had chance to really be lonely yet, because I get on well with the people I work with at my school, and also because the culture is not quite so alien as it was back in Thailand. So I kind of feel a little bit more at ease here than I did in Thailand, but still I'm pretty anxious about what's going to happen at the end of the year. Because that's a very big thing in TEFL, is most teachers will literally come for either 6 months or a year contract, and then they move on, and that's it. So it's pretty much like you make friends with people who you know you're destined to kind of lose. And it's one of the downsides, or one of the more depressing aspects of teaching English overseas. It's not all fun and games. There's also a lot of sad times to be had as well when you make these friends who go away. And I still have some very, very good friends that I've made whilst teaching English overseas, but most of them, yeah, I think most of them, or almost all of them, I've never seen since they finished their contracts. And I really hope that someday I can see them again, but the thing is, it's just one of those things when you teach English overseas. It's a very kind of transient job where you just, people come and go, and friends come and go, and it's kind of what happens when you're in the life of an expat. So I just wanted to share this to show that it is normal to feel lonely overseas. So, my advice to anyone who's planning to go abroad is, especially if you're going to an exotic culture or somewhere unusual, is just be prepared for it and know what to expect. Also, try and find out if there's any expat community there or any community of your nationality based anywhere around there, especially people of your age or a similar background to yourself. Otherwise, try and get a friend to go with you. And anyway, I'm almost running out of time on my memory, so I better shut it off at there. But any questions, hit me up. Cheers.